I'm going to give the first very brief presentation about the Reaching Out programme so that you know what we've been doing over the past 2 years. So I'm doing this on behalf of what we call the Creating Connections Network. And that's a network of people who, similarly to me, have got a role within public and patient involvement. So it's not just me, there's a whole team of people who've been involved in this. So Reaching Out, what was Reaching Out? It was a stream of national funding that we applied to as a network to build relationships and developing public involvement with a more diverse population. I think certainly in the Northeast, we were very aware that we weren't as diverse as we could be. We live in a very diverse community with lots of different aspects. Even if you look at the types of community, we've got rural and we've got very urban communities as a very basic example. We wanted to engage with parts of the Northeast community that weren't routinely or typically involved in health, social and public health research. So it's about introducing and engaging with new people. And there were actually 4 of these projects funded across the UK. And we were very lucky in that we got funded twice. So we didn't feel that the work that we did in the initial funding was enough to make it sustainable. So we bid for more money and we got that. It wasn't a huge amount of money, I have to add, but there's a lot of work went into it. So within that Creating Connections network, these are just some of the organisations that were involved. The Research Design Service with the Consumer Panel, and I know we've got some members here today. The Institute for Health and Society from Newcastle University, Clinical Research Network, and the list goes on. So very widespread and very varied. But to tell you a little bit about the Reaching Out groups, lots of the other areas in the country decided to choose one community that they wanted to specifically work with. We don't like to do things easily in the Northeast, so we chose 6 different communities that we wanted to engage with. And these were identified through lots of discussions with the Creating Connections network. So just to take you around these pictures, the first one was about how do I try and get people who are working engaged in the work that we do. So I actually went through Newcastle City Council and I went out and spoke to the bin men in Newcastle and said to them, so if you wanted to take part in developing this research, how would you do it? When would you do it? What would be the best way? And they said they wouldn't do it in the spare time because it doesn't interest them. Why would they? If I wanted to get their voice, I had to go out to their station at 6:30 in the morning before they started work and be part of their management meeting, which I did. So it was thinking about, well, like today, we're having the meeting in the middle of the day. If you're working as a bin man, as a carer, might you have that time in the middle of the day? They said not. So they wanted me to think about alternative ways, alternative venues, and outside of the box times to engage with them. So a really interesting discussion. The middle picture at the top, some of you will recognise it as a transporter bridge. From my hometown in Middlesbrough. And there's been a lot of work gone on, and we've got a couple of members here today with a very special group of people in Middlesbrough from the migrant women's group. And we've met a few times now to talk about really diverse health topics and social care topics as well. So that was another group that we're now looking at the model that we used in Middlesbrough to see if we can replicate it in Sunderland because it's working so well. And I'll give you a little example of that shortly. As I mentioned, we are a very big rural area. I live in rural Northumberland, so I'm acutely aware of some of the difficulties in how do we take part in things that are happening in Newcastle or in Carlisle if we live in the middle of the countryside with very limited Wi-Fi. It's timely that there's a picture of the sheep and the lambs because I went out to a rural, it was a farmers' wives group, and they said, please don't come to us until June, until lambing stopped, because we have no time to do anything else during lambing. So not only are we talking about people's working lives, but that seasonality of it as well. Don't come during lambing, wait until it's finished and then we'll talk to you. And they did, and I went out one night to a bingo night in Bellingham because that's when they said they would talk to me. So it's about going to different places, not asking people to come to us in the university necessarily. The Beacon is in Whitehaven, and we met several times with a group of young people from Whitehaven who said that they've never heard of public and patient involvement and how do they get involved. And they often felt overlooked. Nobody's ever gone to them before and asked their opinion on anything. and they were quite excited, and we've taken to them some work on some health research, but also some environmental research as well. No surprises that the middle one at the bottom is about pregnancy. There was a group, successful group in Newcastle, and what we wanted to do was make sure that women across the northeast and North Cumbria had similar access to being involved in research projects. So one of our midwives now runs this group in Middlesbrough, in Sunderland and in South Shields. So again, spreading that diversity so it's not just in one pocket in Newcastle. And the final picture is actually something that was created in one of our workshops with our mental health community in Gateshead. This was a user support centre. And we went along to them and said, would you like to be involved? Would you really? What would you like to be involved with? And they were very clear that, yes, we would like to be involved, but we only want to be involved about things that affect us. So we learned some really good lessons about what they wanted to be involved in and what they didn't. So they're the 6 communities that we originally started this work with. But I'm going to hand over to Beauty, and I hope she can mute herself, because Beauty is actually going to read out her reflections. I'm scrolling through of her experience of being involved from the Middlesbrough Migrant Women's Group. Hi, Beauty. Are you all right to read your statement out?
Hi, Jo.
Hi.
Yes, I am. Thank you for the opportunity. As Jo has said, I'm Beauty and I live in Middlesbrough. And as a Zimbabwean who has lived for 17 years, I was very surprised and honored really to take part in the health discussion that specifically focused on the lived experience of migrant women or BME women. I was surprised to be asked to take part because people who make decisions that affect us rarely set out to engage with our communities, but rather just put a label on us and say we are hard to reach, which I do not agree with. To me, this shows that they do not care about our opinions or think we are not competent enough or enough to understand what's going on. So we are often ignored and excluded. Being part of this, of the discussion that Jo mentioned, gave me an insight into how resilient and eager to contribute the attendees were my fellow women I live with here. I really enjoyed the discussions. They were open, informative. The group was very diverse, and this meant the conversation was very rich as well. I felt honored because someone thought my views mattered, and this feeling gave me confidence to share my experience. To me, it is important for migrant communities to be included in research, as they are experts in their own lives, and their beliefs and views have to be taken into consideration in planning, implementing, and research. So thank you, Jo, for that opportunity. It has led me to involve myself in other areas, and it's been eye-opening. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Beauty. And I'm sure we'll hear from Beauty in the small groups as well. And I think that's a really good example of people, a community that weren't involved or contacted and are now fully involved. And Beauty is selling herself short because she's now on the cross NIHR group for inclusion and diversity. So she's representing the North East and North Cumbria at a national level, which is fantastic. So what we're trying to do is take that really the next steps of the lessons that we've learned from working with those communities to try and build on it to produce a code of practice so that we're honest and we're real in those relationships and that we're respectful of people's time. We want to continue to build relationships, which is why we've invited lots of new people here today. And we'd like to invite all of you who are interested to be involved in opportunities in the future. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to hand over to a colleague, Susan Maloney, and Susan is going to present some of her work that's been running. We've been doing this kind of alongside the Reaching Out work, but interestingly, it's all kind of coming together now, isn't it, Susan? So I'm going to hand over to you.